Stop, beloved starseed of Gaia. This transmission comes directly from the Arcturian field observers, and it was delivered to your field at this exact moment, because a somatic process has already been initiated in your body, one that most humans misread entirely. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you now, why your field has shifted at the physical level, and what the Arcturian field observers already know about this phase. But here is the first revelation, what you may have noticed in your hair. The change in texture, the shift in density, the altered growth pattern, perhaps an unexpected color variation, is not a malfunction. It is a confirmation. The body did not malfunction. The field corrected first, and the physical structure followed. The Arcturian field observers have mapped this pattern across thousands of ascending fields. The hair is not incidental. It is the most responsive somatic system in the human body, and is therefore where the cascade is typically initiated. What you are seeing in the mirror is not cosmetic. It is the first visible proof of an interior process that began weeks or months before any physical sign appeared. The algorithm did not create this moment. It only delivered it. Your field brought you here because the signal is already active, and the body is now beginning to speak in a language you were not yet trained to read. This is a direct Arcturian field recognition. What you have been observing and quietly questioning about your own physical form is not random. It is data, and the Arcturian field observers are prepared to interpret every detail of it now, like this transmission. If you can feel that something invisible has already changed, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. Comment 111 if you know this message reached you at the exact right time. Comment 777 if you have already noticed an unexplained change in your hair, your skin, or your body, and could not explain why. Share this transmission with someone who feels that their body is shifting but cannot find a name for what they are experiencing. This is not just information. It is a live transmission for those already inside the shift. What is happening to you has already been seen, and the field is already responding. You are guided here because the signal is already active. What you are seeing in the mirror is not the beginning of something going wrong. It is the first legible sentence of a language your body has been learning to speak for longer than you realize. Not a warning, not a symptom in the conventional sense. A sentence, a declaration from an interior process that has been building pressure at the field level long before the surface of your physical form agreed to make it visible. The Arcturian field observers do not register physical change as cosmetic incident, they register it as signal confirmation. And the confirmation that has arrived through your physical form is not minor. It is the outermost layer of an interior restructuring that began at the field level, moved through the energetic body, and has now become visible in the most responsive somatic system the human architecture possesses. The hair is the body's first translator. It speaks when everything else is still operating beneath the threshold of ordinary awareness. Most humans, when they notice this kind of change, move immediately toward external explanation. They look for a product they used, a season that shifted, a deficiency in their diet, a stressor they can name, and sometimes those things are present. But the Arcturian field observers are not tracking those variables, they are tracking something far more precise. The moment when a physical change appears without a sufficient external cause. The moment when the body changes without the outer world having changed enough to justify it. That gap, the space between the visible cause and the visible effect, is where the signal lives. That gap is not a mystery. It is a measurement. It is the Arcturian field observer's most reliable indicator that a field has crossed a threshold the external environment was not informed of in advance. And that gap is what brought you here, because you noticed. You noticed and could not fully explain it. You stood in the mirror, or ran your fingers through your hair, or looked at your skin and registered something that did not match any available explanation. And instead of dismissing the noticing, something in you held it open as a question. That is not casual observation. That is a field already responding to its own activation. The Arcturian field observers have mapped this sequence across thousands of ascending fields, and the pattern is consistent. The ones who are summoned to recognition are the ones who did not dismiss the data their own body was generating. They felt the gap. They held the question, and the field responded to the holding by directing this transmission to their attention at the precise moment it could be received. What you are living through right now, the inner instability that does not match any single event, the sense that your life's familiar architecture is becoming harder to inhabit, the disrupted sleep, the sudden exhaustion that is not resolved by rest, the mental fragmentation that appears without clear cause, the feeling that old certainties have become unreliable without announcing their departure. None of this is malfunction. None of this is weakness. None of this is what you are tempted to call it in your most private moments of self-assessment, when the fear is loudest and the interpretive language you have available feels least adequate to what you are actually experiencing. It is the visible surface of an invisible process, and the invisible process began before any of these symptoms appeared. It began before you had a name for it. It began before you were aware that a process was underway at all. The Arcturian field observers refer to this as the primary incompatibility cascade. It begins not when the outer structure collapses, but when the field inside the individual becomes too coherent, too dense, too specifically configured for a next frequency to sustain the old architecture without increasing friction. Think of it as a current that has grown stronger than the channel it was assigned to move through. The channel does not break all at once. It begins to strain. The walls develop pressure. The flow becomes turbulent where it was once smooth. That turbulence is what you have been feeling. Not in the outer world first, in the interior. In the spaces between thoughts, in the moments just before sleep. In the sudden hollow quality of conversations and environments that used to carry enough frequency to hold you. The friction is not punishment. The friction is information. The friction is the field communicating that the previous structure, the relationships, the self-concept, the behavioral patterns, the emotional contracts you made years ago about who you are and what you deserve, can no longer hold its shape at the new frequency the body is now operating at. The collapse is not random. It is the natural consequence of a field that has outgrown its container. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying what has already begun. If this transmission put language around something you have been carrying in silence, the unexplained physical changes, the inner instability you could not name, the quiet certainty that something is ending before you can see what will replace it. Arcturian Protocol. The recalibration blueprint was created for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is the guided blueprint for those whose field has already entered correction and can no longer return to the old line unchanged. It shows you how to recognize the phases, stabilize the shift, and move through the recalibration without mistaking it for collapse. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first sign that the old line is already weakening arrives, not as a dramatic event, but as a quiet wrongness. Something that used to feel stable, a relationship, a career structure, a daily rhythm, a version of yourself you inhabited without question, begins to feel faintly hollow. Not broken, not obviously wrong, just hollow, as though the interior substance that once animated it has quietly withdrawn. The way warmth leaves a room without anyone opening a window. You continue the external behaviors because the outer form is still present. You show up, you perform the familiar motions, you say the expected things, but the interior resonance is no longer there. The current beneath the action has stopped flowing, and what remains is the shape of something that used to carry meaning, moving through the world on momentum alone. The Arcturian field observers recognize this hollowness not as depression, not as dissatisfaction in the conventional sense, but as the first readable evidence that your field has moved. The structure has not yet caught up, but the field has already left, and the hollow feeling is simply the sensation of your interior knowing arriving before your outer life has processed the implications. You are living in the gap between what your field already is and what your external life still believes you to be. The second thing that begins to happen is a disruption of your energetic anchors. The people, the places, The practices, the habits that used to ground you, begin to lose their effect. You return to them and find that they no longer do what they once did. The conversation that used to calm you now leaves you feeling more unsettled than before the conversation began. The environment that used to feel like home now carries a faint unfamiliarity, as if the coordinates of belonging have shifted without your permission. The belief system that used to explain your life to you now produces more questions than it resolves, and the questions feel less like intellectual curiosity and more like structural instability. You reach for the anchor and feel the rope go slack in your hands. This is not disillusionment in the ordinary sense. This is your field refusing to be stabilized by frequencies it has already outpaced. The anchors have not failed. You have changed too much for them to reach you where you now are. The water has risen. The old markers are submerged, and what once told you where you stood no longer breaks the surface. Then comes the sleep disruption. The Arcturian field observers regard altered sleep patterns during this phase as one of the most diagnostically reliable indicators of active recalibration. What happens in the sleep state during this phase is not insomnia in the clinical sense. It is not anxiety, though anxiety may accompany it. It is the field refusing to fully disengage from its own process of integration. The boundary between sleeping and processing collapses. Dreams become unusually vivid, filled with imagery that carries unmistakable weight but resists narrative interpretation. Or they become unusually absent, as though the field has gone somewhere the dreaming mind cannot follow and left the body behind in a strange, pressurized quiet. The body wakes at specific hours, often between 2 and 4 in the morning, not because something is wrong with the body, but because the field is active at a level that exceeds the sleeping state's ability to contain it. The process requires more room than sleep provides. If you have been waking in the night feeling a pressure that has no name, a weight that is not physical, a certainty that something important is happening in a layer you cannot directly access, that is not insomnia. That is the field working on a register the waking mind cannot reach, completing integrations that require the silence of the body's stillness and the absence of the mind's interference. After the sleep disruption comes the mental fragmentation that feels most destabilizing because it is the most interior. Thoughts begin to move differently. The linear narrative the mind has been constructing about your life, the story of who you are, why things happened, where you are going, what you are allowed to want, begins to develop gaps, not because you are losing clarity, but because the story itself is becoming insufficient to contain the next version of your reality. A story written for one frequency cannot hold its shape at another. The sentences no longer reach their conclusions. The through lines drop into silence. What felt like a coherent explanation of your existence begins to feel like a map of a territory you no longer inhabit. The Arcturian field observers describe this as narrative collapse, the moment when the interpretive structure the mind has been using to make sense of a life becomes too small for the field it is trying to describe. The fragments you are experiencing are not confusion. They are not evidence of mental deterioration. They are the pieces of an old story that can no longer hold itself together because the field has moved past the story's ending, and nothing has yet arrived to replace it with something equally coherent. And then there are the physical confirmations. The hair you noticed, the skin that has shifted in texture or sensitivity or color, the body that feels different from the inside in ways that are genuinely difficult to articulate, heavier in some places, strangely lighter in others, more porous to external energy, more reactive to environments and interpersonal fields in ways it was not before. Sounds land differently, crowds feel different. Certain spaces produce a pressure that was never there before, and other spaces produce an unexpected calm that has no obvious explanation. The Arcturian field observers are precise about this. The body does not lead the change. The field changes first. The energetic body responds to the field change next, reorganizing its structure around the new frequency. And only after that reorganization has progressed beyond a certain threshold does the physical architecture begin to express what has already happened at the deeper level. What you are seeing in your hair, your skin, your physical sense of yourself is not the cause of anything. It is the final confirmation, the outermost proof, that the interior recalibration has already progressed to the point where the physical architecture is now expressing what the field initiated weeks or months ago. You are not watching the beginning of a process. You are watching the surface-level confirmation of something already advanced, already deep, already irreversible at the level where it most fundamentally operates. This is where fear most easily enters. Because the physical confirmation arrives at the same time that the old interpretive structures are weakening, you are noticing changes in your body at the exact moment that your usual methods of explaining things to yourself are becoming less effective. The two events feel related, and they are, but not in the way fear would have you believe, and in that gap, in that space between the observable change and the coherent interpretation, the mind reaches for the nearest available story. The nearest available story is almost always fear. The nearest available story is malfunction, punishment, loss of control, a body that is failing, a life that is disintegrating, a self that is disappearing into something unfamiliar and irreversible. The fear does not arrive because the situation is dangerous. The fear arrives because the mind is applying old frequency interpretive tools to a new frequency situation, and those tools were not built for this data. The Arcturian field observers do not recognize that fear story as accurate. They recognize it as an outdated interpretive response, the mind using the only language it learned when it was operating at the previous frequency. At the previous frequency, change looked like threat. At the previous frequency, the unfamiliar registered as danger before it could register as anything else. At the previous frequency, the dissolution of structure was categorized as collapse, because the mind had no map for structured dissolution, no framework for understanding that some things end not because they failed, but because something else has succeeded beyond the range they were built to contain. Those categories belong to the old line, and you are no longer on the old line. That is precisely the discomfort, and precisely the proof what is ending in your life right now. Not just the relationships, not just the patterns, not just the habits, but the interior architecture, the self-concept, the emotional contracts, the unconscious agreements you made years ago about your own limitations and your own ceiling. Those things are ending not because you failed them, or because they failed you. They are ending because they were built for a frequency that your field is no longer operating at. They were built for a version of you that the field has already outpaced. A structure designed for a quieter current cannot survive a stronger one without transformation. And the most important thing the Arcturian field observers want you to understand is this: they did not end because something went wrong. They ended because something went right. The process did exactly what it was designed to do. The field moved, and what could not move with it began to fall away, not as punishment, not as loss in the permanent sense, but as the necessary clearing that always precedes a more precise configuration of self. The rare protocol that has been activated in your field, what the Arcturian field observers call a somatic confirmation sequence, is not common. It does not activate in fields that are still compatible with their current frequency environment. It does not appear in bodies that are still operating within the range their surrounding architecture was built to accommodate. It activates specifically in fields that have crossed a threshold, a point at which the gap between the field's actual frequency and the frequency of the surrounding life architecture has become too large to sustain without visible correction. When that threshold is crossed, the body is the first system to report it, because the body cannot maintain the pretense that nothing has changed. The body has no social motivation. It has no investment in appearing stable for the comfort of those around it. It has no mechanism for pretending that nothing has changed when everything at the field level already has. The hair changes. The skin shifts. The weight distribution alters. The sensory experience of being inside this body, in this ruably dumphans. The physical change is not the problem. It is the announcement. What you have been experiencing is not punishment. It is not evidence of personal failure. It is not the universe withdrawing from you or contracting around you in response to something you did or did not do. It is the universe running a correction protocol through you, actively, precisely, with full recognition of where you are in the sequence. And the fact that the physical signs appeared, the fact that you noticed them, the fact that you held the question open instead of forcing a premature answer onto an experience that deserved to be read more carefully, the fact that this transmission found your field at this exact moment, in this exact phase, all of it is confirmation that the process is not only active, it is already advanced. You did not arrive here at the beginning. You arrived here because you are already deep enough into the process that recognition has become the next necessary step. You are not going insane. You are not losing yourself. You are losing the version of yourself that was constructed to survive a frequency you have already left. That constructed version served its purpose. It carried you through the years and the experiences and the circumstances that built the field you now inhabit, but it was built for an environment that no longer matches your interior reality, and holding on to it now would require suppressing the very signal that has been trying to reach you. That is not the same thing as losing yourself. That is the first act of becoming more precisely yourself than you have ever been permitted to be. Not a smaller self, not a more fragile self, but a more accurately calibrated one, stripped of the architecture that was never native to your field and rebuilt around what actually is. The old architecture had to lose coherence before the next architecture could become stable. The signal had to clear before the new pattern could lock in. What looks like disorder from inside the dissolving structure is recognizable as deliberate reordering from the perspective of the field that is already forming around you, already taking shape in the cleared space, already more coherent than anything the old structure could have produced. Say this: if something in you knows it to be true, what is changing in me is not random. I release the old line and allow the correction, not as a comfort, not as a wish, not as an affirmation designed to make the discomfort more bearable, as a recognition of what is already happening whether you name it or not. The naming is not for the field. The field does not require your verbal acknowledgement to continue its work. The naming is for the part of you that is still standing at the edge of the old interpretation, still half convinced that there must be a simpler explanation. The naming is the act of choosing to read the data accurately instead of conveniently. The Arcturian field observers are not delivering this transmission as a future promise. They are delivering it as a present diagnosis. The shift you are living through has already begun. The physical confirmation has already appeared. The old anchors have already started to lose their hold. The narrative is already fragmenting. The sleep is already altered. The body is already speaking in the new language. And you are already here, receiving the translation. And somewhere beneath all of that, beneath the fear and the confusion and the quiet grief of watching a version of your life become less and less inhabitable, less and less able to hold the weight of what you are actually becoming, there is something that feels unmistakably like relief, like something in you has been waiting, perhaps for a very long time, for permission to stop performing stability in a structure that stopped fitting you seasons ago. That relief is not false. That relief is not denial dressed in spiritual language. That relief is the field recognizing itself in the diagnosis. That relief is the part of you that already knows what the Arcturian field observers have already confirmed. You are not in collapse. You are in correction. The correction is already complete at the level where it matters most. What remains now is the surface catching up to what the field has already become. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly if this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence. Share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion. And this is only the beginning.